Okay, so your goal for today is to be able to look at a graph and be able to write an equation for that graph. And so you'll notice here, if you look at the worksheet that you've gotten from the substitute teacher, this looks like the top graph. And so what we're going to do is look at the key attributes of this graph. And I'm going to be sort of jumping between pages because I haven't figured out a way to annotate on this screen. So if you look at your graph paper, I'm going to go to my different screen. If you look at your graph paper, you can see that your midline, so I usually like to start by locating the midline. The midline is the x-axis, so that's the equation y equals 0. So if you colored in the x-axis, that would slice the wave into two equal parts. After that, let's look at the amplitude. So if you look at your highest high and your lowest low, they occur at 4.5 and negative 4.5. So your amplitude is 4.5. The next thing that we're going to look at is the frequency. And so if you think back to the parent function, you've always got to have that parent in mind. The parent function does one complete cycle over 2 pi units. So you see one complete wave. A wave looks like this over 2 pi. Well, if you look at your graph, you see one complete wave over 2 pi. So the frequency is 1. The period is basically the length of time, on the x-axis that it takes to complete that one complete cycle. And so it does the one complete cycle over 2 pi units. Really, the last thing we need to talk about is the phase shift. And so to talk about the phase shift, what I want you to do is just look at your graph and look at your graph to the right of the origin. If it has this basic shape that you see here, there's no phase shift. And so when you look at your graph, it looks like that, so there's no phase shift. So what we can do now is we can write the equation of this graph knowing that the amplitude is 4.5. So I'm going to say the equation of this wave is y equals 4.5 sine x. And what I'd like you to do is open up Desmos to check to see whether the wave you see is the same as the wave that we have here. And so once again, that is y equals 4.5 sine x.